Hello, and welcome to episode 124 on the Everyday Joy podcast. I'm your host, Joy Ravella. We are in for such a treat all of this week. Gig is my guest. Now, Gig was on earlier on the Everyday Joy podcast, and she touched a lot in previous episodes about her upbringing, her life. She didn't grow up in a Christian household. She had to navigate quite a few tricky things with her relationship, especially around her parents and those sorts of things. And so if you really relate and resonate with Gig's upbringing and some of the things she's walked through, go back and check out episodes 89 through to episode 93. And I know that you'll get so much out of re-listening to those episodes. Before we dive into today's Bible verse, I want to encourage you to head on over to the link in the description below, cbm.org.au. CBM is an incredible organisation. They are all about making sure that those who cannot afford a $33 operation to restore their sight as a result of cataracts can have access to that operation as a result of your generosity. And if $33, if you have space in the budget to do that, to make that investment, to change someone's life, we do talk about that quite a bit in today's episode. What a practical way to apply today's verse. You can head on over to that website, which is in the description below. Right now, though, let's get into today's Bible verse.
If you have to choose between a good reputation and great wealth, choose a good reputation. This is found in Proverbs 22, verse 1 of the Good News Translation.
Today, I have got Gig here in studio with me. Gig, so good to have you.
This is my happy place. I have to say, this whole podcast has been an absolute gift to me, so I say thank you.
Oh, well, Gig, I know that you just seem like a different person in the studio today, because last time you were in, it was the first time you were doing it. You've been a volunteer here at The Light for years. You've been Listener of the Year. You're not an unfamiliar voice,
No.
But it was really interesting when you said that you had a lot of anxiety around reading the words that you typed up.
I did, but you've got to understand, Joy, they were tricky verses for me. And through that, I've learnt and grown. And so, as I said, it's been a treat.
Yeah, and it's so good to see you here. I think I can see the growth. I can see the confidence. And I love how we are going to unpack today Proverbs 22, verse 1. It's about the power of a good reputation.
Yes.
I remember at uni, we did a whole paper on this. And it was this idea that a reputation takes years and years and years and years to build. It just takes one thing and the whole pyramid collapses.
Tumbling down, absolutely. And people only remember the things that go wrong.
I know. I wish we weren't like that as humans. I really do. But it is the way it works, and a good reputation is really hard to come by, even harder to keep.
Yes.
Those are my first impressions of this verse. What about you?
My first impression is that this is the opposite of modern day life. The way that mankind lives today mostly, and you got to look back at the times. This was Solomon's times, and to be wise and well respected was worth more than riches, and they obviously didn't have social media.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yep. Yeah, although, have you seen the AI images they've done of biblical times?
They are good.
They are good.
I have to scroll through them. They are absolutely clever. I agree. Yes.
But truly, different times those were written in. But I love how the biblical truths just stay consistent throughout the time, the era, whatever season in life you're in personally right now listening. So what does this verse tell you, Gig, about who God is or what he values?
Yeah. I believe God doesn't want us to get caught up in the spiral of worldly things, that he wants us to leave an impact. He wants us to live a full, enriched life of purpose, joy and impact, and he wants us to see others as he sees us. So I think it opens the gate to a very wholesome and joyous living.
Yeah. And I think that's the name of this podcast, the Everyday Joy podcast. And so much of our Christian walk, Christian faith is rooted in finding that joy.
Yep.
But joy doesn't always look like happy sprinkles and sparkles all the time. Sometimes in order to attain that, you've got to make some sacrifices. You've got to make a choice, as this proverb talks about, choosing between a good reputation and great wealth. Yep. This world tells you you're going to find joy through great wealth.
Yes.
And God's word is saying, saying, no, joy, freedom, goodness, the things that matter aren't found in the number you have in your bank account.
Yes. And you see that across the world through social media and through different things you see on telly, where you see people in, what we call developing nations, where I think they're more developed than us, really. And you see people living with just the basics, basic shelter, basic food. And especially if they're a God-fearing society, you see joy because they are grateful for waking up. Just the simple fact of waking up.
Yeah. Sometimes you need that reminder to strip it all away in order to see what really matters. This verse, Gig, talks about the choice between a good reputation and great wealth. Have you yourself ever had to make that kind of choice between the two?
Money has never interested me. I've always got a real buzz out of giving to people, even before I knew Christ and even as a child. I remember grade 5 or 6, there was a girl in our primary school. Their house had burnt down for the second time. So I packed up a box of things. I even gave her my first teddy bear.
Oh, Gig.
I know. I got in so much trouble from my mother from this. And I said to her, Mum, she's got nothing. I've still got a house. She's got nothing. So I want to give her some things that mean a lot to me. And yeah, I got in the biggest trouble. But yeah, it's just, I've always seen the worth in giving to people, and I've always got the biggest, it's like a drug for me. And doing things in the secret, in the quiet, putting money in someone's account, leaving a box of fruit and veg, really basic stuff. I've always seen, money's great. It helps, it pays the bills, but I find such power in giving to people.
So as we wrap up today's conversation, it's interesting. We started out talking about reputation, but I think what we've landed on is this whole idea that, you can't find everything in money.
No.
For that person who's maybe in a situation right now where they feel a little trapped in the money cycle, and they're struggling to break out of it and live a life that's more about the giving and the selflessness, as someone who lives your life by those values, what would be a piece of encouragement you would give to someone in that space?
I think for them to make this verse a reality, to stop comparing yourself to others, to stop comparing yourself to what you see. Start comparing to, or not even comparing, start absorbing what God does. Look at the Bible. Look how the stories are in the Bible. And people give themselves such a hard time about how they live their lives. I'm not perfect. I'm not this. I'm not that. Go back and read up on some of the people who made the biggest impact in the Bible. They were struggling people. They were sinners. They were murderers. They were liars. They were adulterers. And God could still use them. In this respect, actions speak louder than words. So be kind, be sincere, and start doing the little things around you to actually put God first and to make the biggest impact.
Seems like the word for today's episode is reputation. Proverbs 22 verse 1, if you have to choose between a good reputation and great wealth, choose a good reputation. My question to you today is this: what are you known for? What reputation do you have? And if you're not sure, ask some trusted people around you. What is your brand? Because we all have one. And if you think you don't have a brand, well, then I would say really go ahead and ask those people around you. There's this beautiful song by Stephanie Gretzinger, and I'm going to post it up on the Everyday Joy Facebook page. And there's this beautiful part of the song where she says, "Let my children tell their children. Let this be their memory, that all my treasures were in heaven and Jesus meant everything to me." And I remember the first time I heard that song and I just wept. I wept and I wept. And to this day, I get very emotional listening to that song, because that song I feel echoes my heartbeat. That's the reputation I want to leave behind. That is what I want my children's children to say about me, that Joy was a woman who loved Jesus. And so my question to you today is this: what is your reputation? What are you building? Now, Gig gave some really great examples on her reputation of being someone who loves to give and the power of that. And there's so many ways for you to build that part of your reputation. It's such a practical way to just give towards something today, to give of your time, to give of your resources, to give advice, to maybe even make that donation, whatever that looks like for you. Know that your actions ultimately build up your reputation. They say who you are, and they say a lot about what you believe in. Well, that wraps up today's episode on the Everyday Joy podcast. Proverbs 22 verse 1. If you have to choose between a good reputation and great wealth, choose a good reputation. Hey, if today's episode or any previous ones have really struck a chord with you, I'd love to hear about it. You can send through an email. It comes straight through to me. It's in the description below, everydayjoy@positivemedia.com.au. Hey, I look forward to catching up tomorrow right here on the Everyday Joy podcast.